My guests today are filmmakers Markus Anderson and Boyd Anderson and their brand new feature film, If You Should Leave Before Me. Now, the Andersons are Chumash brothers who grew up in Idaho and moved back to their ancestral lands of Southern California for one reason: to make great films. The two have worked together as a writer-director duo on projects of their own over a decade. Their web series like For the Wind and Food Quest to their award-winning short film Limbo. Now, in 2023, the Andersons started their production company, Chiefs Over Kings, through which they produced their debut feature film, If You Should Leave Before Me. Now, their film had a worldwide premiere at Raindance Film Festival this year, and their new film is a touching story of love and loss. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmakers Markus Anderson and Boyd Anderson to the show. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey,
Hello. Thanks for having us on.
it's a good intro. I love the intro. Killing it.
Hey, you're very, very welcome. Well, I have to say, I watched this film from beginning to end. And for the audience, what is this film about?
Yeah, so this film it's an exploration of grief. It's funny, when we wrote it, I don't know if we knew how much like of our own grief we put into this thing. But after like showing it to tons of people and talking at all these festivals, people are really like coming up to us and asking us. And I think that's when we start realizing what it's about. But yeah, there's this main couple, Mark and Joshua, they're on the poster behind us there. They have they've been together a long time. They're just in their house, and then these doors appear in their house, and each one enters these different worlds, like cardboard world and plate lady world, and so on. And there's someone in there that they have to help move on to the afterlife. So it's kind of how do you deal with grief? How do you deal with losing someone that you thought you could never live without? It's kind of what the topic is, you know.
Yeah. And we do it in a, it's a heavy topic, so it is an emotional film, but we also have a lot of levity, a lot of comedy, and a lot of fun. So there's a fight scene, a kung fu fight scene during Christmas during the film. So.
Yeah, that was fun.
I noticed that, and it was almost like watching a lot of miniature movies within this whole film. But why was it important to tell a story of love, loss, and grief? Well, because of the fact that with love and loss, grief is on the horizon.
Yeah, I always thought it was just about grief, but then someone after a festival in Chicago at Reeling, we were talking to some people afterwards, and there was this older couple, and they were saying like only if you're lucky will you get to experience this. Like not everyone gets to experience love at this level. And I was like, wow, that's actually
That was touching. Really.
yeah. I was like, that's actually a great point because some people don't ever find a connection that strong. So I think they're almost saying it's not a curse or a bad thing. It's like a blessing to experience such grief because that means you loved that much. So I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
Well, you did something in this film that I don't usually get to see when there is a topic of grief. Normally, we see the person dealing with the grief. We don't actually get to see the other side because the other side has passed on and moved on. But in a way, you bring forth into this film the other side. Why was that important?
That's a good question. It was fun to kind of have like a film that we wanted to kind of trick the audience at first to not really know what's happening, but give enough clues that it was satisfying that as you started to piece it together, we feel like people start to realize one of our little twists in the film at a certain point, which is good because we set it up that way. So, but I think it gives them a nice satisfaction of going, I think I figured this out. And it was fun to kind of have sort of like this ghost story that you're along with the ride with both parties and kind of seeing how it feels from both sides.
Yeah, and I feel like there's like a more normal way to write this. Like normally you would write a movie like this, it'd be the first door ever, and they would be discovering it for the first time. Mm-hmm. Where we jump in, like we don't know how long this has been happening to them, but clearly they've been seeing these doors a while when we, as an audience, see the first door. But I think that's more of a fun way to just throw some. I like throwing audiences in the middle of a story, and you have to kind of figure it out as the characters are going along instead of figuring it out with the characters. I think it's more interesting to that
Well,
way.
the great the great thing in this film is you don't give away the main plot line. We have to get in halfway through this story till there are these little hints that slowly start to come into view, and we're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And so you kind of lead us there. But I want to kind of begin talking about some of the characters in the film. Now, Mark is a coroner, correct?
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
why did you choose that as his profession? Because it's very subtle in this film.
Yeah. So that there's only like that one little moment where he talks about what it is that he does on the outside. It was mostly based on a real person that we know, and his name was Mark, and he was a coroner. So we come from a construction background, so we have clients. We remodel this guy's bathroom, and he was Mark, and he was a coroner, and he would tell us these stories, while we were tiling his floor.
He'd make us dinner too, and
Yeah, make us
we'd sit down with
and-
his partner, and we'd just eat with this guy.
Yeah, eat, and then he'd tell us some interesting stories about picking up people, bodies. So that was always kind of an interesting thing to us about like that life. What is that like where you're just every day you're picking up, someone that's deceased, and it just becomes a normal part of your life. So we did when we first started writing the script. There was a version where it was a guy going and picking up bodies, and then we thought, what if he like took maybe a little artifact or something from each home and had like a shrine or something at his house. So that was the first basis for the idea, and then it completely changed from there. But the character and name stayed. So and his
Yep.
occupation.
Well, with Mark being a coroner, which I actually thought was perfect because he's dealing, like you said, he's dealing with picking up the deceased on a daily basis.
Yep.
The families of that deceased are dealing with grief, but in a way he's shielded because with that type of job, eventually you kind of become numb to what you're doing. My father, way back in the day, was a funeral director,
Mhm.
and back in the 60s into the 70s, the ambulance services back then were not paramedics. I mean, they were a station wagon with a stretcher in the back, and you were doing over 100 miles an hour to get to a scene, pick them up, and try to get them to the hospital before they died. So there was
Yeah.
nothing in between. And eventually you just kind of become to, not that you come completely numb, but you're not dealing with the grief that the families are going to be dealing with. So
Yeah.
you create this part of him, but the storyline is he's really dealing with his own personal grief in a different way, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That was what was really interesting about the real Mark in real life was he, it was just so normal to him. These stories that he would tell, and some of them were pretty intense, and it was like things that would affect me. But he was just like, yeah. And then I went and got lunch. I'm like, wow,
Right,
okay,
whoa.
that's interesting. So yeah, having Mark be that who's dealing with, I think you become so numb to it because you're around it all the time. But then when it happens to someone close to you, you have a hard time dealing with that, or you've blocked that. I think for so long that now that emotion is new and it's catching up to you.
But it helped him to start seeing the people he was picking up in a whole different light. And that
Yeah.
was the subtlety in this film. Because at first, I didn't catch it until that one line in the film where it was mentioned that he was a coroner. And I went, oh, that changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? But then when you looked at Joshua,
Mhm.
because and again, this is the thing about this film. You bring in such subtleties. So with Joshua, he couldn't understand why he was feeling like he did. Like something was out of place. He didn't know mentally what he was dealing with, and we don't really see why until later in the film. And
Right.
this is where I noticed that this was the element in the film in which you started covering the topic of grief from the other side.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And so that to me, and then when I saw that and figured it out, to me it just made the film that much more powerful.
Yeah. That was the. There's two twists. There's the one that's more obvious about
Mhm.
the partner. I don't think that's the. I think that's the diversion that we put in there, and you kind of figure that out pretty early on. One of them's passed away. I don't think that's a spoiler because it's almost an illusion. But then you find out, like you're talking about now, that the reason why he's feeling that way. That's the bigger twist at the end, towards the end.
Well, I don't think the audience is going to pick up the first twist right off the bat because the
Mm-hmm.
dialogue between Mark and Joshua kind of tricks us because if you're not focused on certain words,
Yep.
either the audience is going to miss it and then figure it out on the second twist,
Yeah.
and then others are going to be like, wait a minute,
Right.
because I like to watch a film without reading the synopsis first.
That's
I
a,
don't really want to. I want to go in there completely blind, like the audience, before I have to go back and rewatch it again, with a
Mhm.
different eye. And I think that's where the twist will hit the audiences completely different.
Yep.
But in the scene when they go through, I think I think it's the first time they go through the door
Hmm.
in the movie. But I do like the fact that you do let the audience know this has happened before.
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're
From
not
early.
they're not too shocked to find this cardboard world
Yeah.
in their closet, you know.
And their
Well,
first
they're not
conversation,
they're not too shocked when they start hearing the knocking.
the
Mhm.
knocking, where it's like, oh, okay, that spawns a new adventure for them. And then the first conversation they have too is about, remember that the woman with the cats? Oh, the cats that ate her. Like that, I think right there, people are like, that's usually where I see head turns. Like,
Like,
wait,
what are you
what?
talking
Well, like the character Lorne.
Yes.
When I was watching him, he represented the baggage we carry our whole life. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That was fun because it was just such an easy, literal thing to have with the baggage that he's carrying. The weight of your life. So that was fun, and then it was cool to kind of juxtapose it against the light cardboard world where everything else is light and paperweights essentially, and then you're literally carrying around the weights from your life.
And I think that world was really good to start with because we don't explain the world like a normal
Mhm.
movie would, but everyone knows what Narnia is and they already get what that representation is. So doing a budget Narnia already establishes a
Yep.
lot of rules and audiences. They're like, oh, okay, this is a fictional or weird world. That's
Mhm.
So I think that helped establish that without even having to say it, which helped a lot too.
And something we haven't really talked about too is like in that scene when Mark is saying it's the suitcase, and then Joshua says like, "Stop it! Why do you always have to ruin it?" That's almost like a breaking the fourth wall to the audience about them catching on to the twist of the movie. So essentially, it's like Mark is the one that's always watching something, trying to figure it out. So that was kind of fun to
Well,
throw.
yeah, because when you're watching the film, you notice Mark is he's always thinking.
Hmm.
And the cool thing about Shane Allen's acting is it's not exactly what he says in certain scenes. It's the look in his
Oh,
eyes, the look on his face, because and I love this. He's letting us know he's thinking about something without having to say it. Because when they went back, when they went through the closet and went into that world where there was Lauren and there was Bonnie,
Yep.
you
mhm.
know, Bonnie, lets Lauren know she's there to help carry the weight, carry the load, the emotional weight.
Yep.
And that's what a perfect partner would do.
Right.
And because it was funny when Lauren would tell Mark or Joshua, like I think it was Mark was the one that kept pushing, "What's in the suitcase? What's in the suitcase?" And Lauren was like, none of your business, let it go. Because that's what we do in real life. The things that
Yep.
we carry, we don't want to talk about. We're not here to open up that door, the Pandora's box, to expose those things that we're dealing with because we don't know how other people are going to react. And Lauren's character played that to a T.
Oh
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah. Those were the first scenes we shot, and
he's such a pro.
um, yeah, those were cool days. They were all just so pro with their acting. I was blown away every time. And with working with Shane too, yeah, there was a lot of talks about like a lot of the subtleties are just in the way he looks or looks away or glances at something or the way you can see that he's thinking about something different. So each world they go into is their own story, but it's also a reflection of Mark.
And
And the things that he's holding on to.
he's
or
so
feeling.
good. Like there's still stuff I'm catching now in their
Mhm.
performances. Like when they're cooking eggs after Cardboard World, like he was supposed to say a line and he didn't, but now when I'm watching, I get why. It's because that thing with we call it mimic Joshua, that one that appeared after Cardboard World and was a little mean to him. But then he disappeared and he's still just staring at that chair because he's still that's where he's mentally is still in that space. And I was just like, it's crazy what they can do with not saying words. They're there.
Well, you did something also in this film, when it comes to love and loss, and it comes and then grief, I I didn't notice it until the film was over because I was sitting here thinking about it and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There are characters who have partners,
Hmm.
but you had characters that were alone because love and loss affects everyone. So I
Yep.
found this element very important in the film. Sure, like you said, you'd met the older couple, you know, of to have that true love of their life, and there's going to be when that time comes when one passes, there's going to be that grief. But then what about the people who are alone?
Right.
And
Hmm.
but the ones that are alone, you did something that I mentioned earlier. You show their side and what
Yeah.
they're wondering of those they've left behind.
Right.
Hmm.
That's true. And with the, we haven't gotten this detail, but I think anyone who's going to watch this has probably seen the movie and have a lot of questions anyway. So, but Cardboard World. When we wrote this, there's a like we had to choose a world where to start, and Cardboard World was, I think, the first world where he saw two people. Like that's not normal. Usually, when someone passes, it's just them. So this is the first time he's seen someone come into this world and pick up their loved one. So in his mind, that's proof because he doesn't like in the tub girl scene. She asks what happens next, and he doesn't know because his job is just help them get from here to there, and he's not really sure what happens after. But this was the first time where in his mind, it was proof that you do get to meet up with your loved ones who are also passed on because his wife came back who had already passed before him to pick him up and bring him. So in his mind, that's why we started there because that's the first time that thought came in his head. He's like, wait, if I do pass away, I also get to join my loved ones. So that's kind of why we started there because that was the first. He's experienced a lot of worlds, but that was the pivotal world in his story where he realized there is something after this, at least in our fictional
Well,
world.
the thing is we all have that same thought because
Mm-hmm.
when someone passes on, maybe it's a parent or some sibling, maybe it's a friend or whatever, but usually family. And then when our thought is yeah, when it's my time, I'm going to get to see them again.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you bring that element into Cardboard World, and which I thought was really great because you start slowly moving the stories behind the doors into a slightly darker world. And I think I know why, because Mark's dealing with his own grief, and sometimes you have to go to the dark place before you can see the light.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But quite literally. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally,
I mean,
you get
the
stuck.
last world is pure darkness. That's why we did that. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
100%.
we did orchestrate it specifically with, it was good for the audience to also be kind of like, oh, okay, they go into these worlds and it's fun and happy and there's gonna be a touching story. And then the second one is with Plate Lady. It's still bright and fun and it's funny. And sure, she didn't have a real love, or people say imagined love for her, or you can say like young, teenage love, where it's built on this fantasy of what it could be or should be, but it's not realistic. Um, and then and then things get
And then it get
significantly
a lot
darker as you get older. The real world starts showing its teeth. So
Well, I thought Plate Lady was funny.
Yes, she was
yes,
so fun.
that was the best. That was so fun, and she is so great, Susan. She's hilarious.
Yeah, that world is so. But there's a lot that the first cut of this movie, I edited the movie, and the first cut was 3 hours long. So we cut an hour of great stuff, honestly,
Yeah,
but
all
it's
of it
just
was
too
good.
long. So, but yeah, the Play Lady world is way longer, and
There
I
was
mean,
some.
there's some good jokes. But my favorite one is still there's a lady in the credenza, so that didn't get cut, thankfully. But
Well,
yeah,
the telltale sign for me between Mark and Joshua, and that's when the light bulb went off for me as I was watching the film, because it's really about Mark remembering all the times he had with Joshua. But there
Yes.
was a line in the film where Mark says, "You know, I loved you. You
Yep.
felt heard and seen." It was that subtle moment to me that it was really leading the audience towards the ending, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And specifically loved. Like,
Loved. Yeah, I remember there was a
past tense.
like the first couple takes. He said, "Love." I love you, and we're like, "No, loved." It's past. He's like, "What's past tense?" I'm like, "Yeah, exactly."
He thought we wrote it wrong in the
we
script.
wrote it wrong. Yeah.
I was like, no, it's very specific.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's that, there's a big difference between saying love and loved.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you went with loved because it set up the rest of the film. But what I started to realize with Mark is that it's funny because in the beginning of the film where Joshua just kind of goes off on this whole coffee bit.
Yeah,
And
right.
Mark's got all the coffees in alphabetical order and the cabinet, everything is neat. He has a very particular way of making coffee and because he feels he's making it right. And Josh was just like kind of like a bull in a china shop, but he's kind of irritated, but it showed me throughout the film that Mark was remembering the good times and the bad times.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
He missed all of them. He would give anything to have the arguments and anger again. You know what I mean? And have him come in and mess up the house again. Like, you don't realize even those annoyances are going to be missed when you trade anything just to have that again. Really. So.
Yes.
Well, when you were writing the script, I mean, because you just didn't go. The thing that I loved was that you didn't go down the road of making it all lovey-dovey and everything is great and I miss you, but you put in some of the negatives, some of the things that may have rubbed either Joshua or Mark the wrong way, and which just made the whole thing real.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's just a lot more honest and true. Like, I've been in a relationship for a long time, and there's plenty of times where I get really annoyed, and then they get really annoyed with me too. So
yeah, we've both been in relation over 10 plus years.
10 plus years. So, and then
I think anyone with a long-term relationship knows it's not all,
Yeah.
Right, but that's how long-term relationships last. You have to accept the good and the bad, and that's the only way it's going to work. There's no perfect rainbow, happy every day. That just doesn't exist.
Yeah, unless I feel like those are more people who really don't actually care. Because if you do care, then you're constantly trying to work or trying to push, trying to do something, and both of you are doing that. That's actually better, I feel.
Well,
so
love is work.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So if you've been through hard times with your partner, it gets hard, but you want to make it better, so you work on it together. So showing some of that was, I think, necessary to really show true love. Yeah.
Well, it really did. I mean, and that's what really when that powerful moment towards the end comes into view, you're like, yeah, because then the whole thing just comes together. But I want to ask you about the Becky scene.
Yeah.
This is a very powerful scene. It's literally worth the price of admission to see this film.
Yeah.
That's
now,
the scene.
What was your thought or message when you wrote the Becky scene? Because that you wanted the audience to take away from it, because after I watched that scene, I sat there and I was just like, do both of you realize that scene alone could actually save lives?
I mean,
that's kind of, grief is one topic on this, but it's also another big topic was, that self-harm and the consequences of that, and how I wanted it to end on a positive note, because as much as Mark's dealing with grief, he's also considering that, and that's kind of what the mimic Joshua, and that's why, like I said, in the cardboard world, when he realizes, oh, if I pass away, the quicker I pass away, I can go join real Joshua. That's the first time that dark thought entered his head, was that world. And that's why the next scene, that evil Joshua sitting in his kitchen, because that's that thought. So it's a really big theme throughout this film. And then obviously he makes the right choice because it's not the right answer. Yeah. And that's kind of the scene there where I think he's talking to someone else, someone young. It's the only young person in the whole film, Everyone else is, dying older is kind of what we all expect. But
Yep.
this is the only character in the film that isn't older. She's
know,
young.
okay.
She's very young.
And she feels alone. She
Yeah.
feels that no one sees her. You know,
Yeah.
we have to understand when people say you don't see me. And we're not talking about physical sight.
No.
Right.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
talking about an emotional thing missing from them, where they're
but what I got from that scene was like, and I've read so many stories. I've read research on this where they've analyzed people who have jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and
Yes.
survived.
Yeah,
And
those are backstories we've read too. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, and they all say the same thing. The ones that lived,
Right.
when their thought is I'm going to end my life. Nobody cares. No one's going to miss me. The moment they make the jump, the first thought is, oh my gosh, I hope I live.
Yep. Yeah.
The change is so quick that there's that element in Becky because she doesn't know, and Mark's looking at her like, no,
Right.
like
There's no going
you've
back.
passed the point of no return.
Yeah, that was important to do with that scene. So growing up, I did have a childhood friend who committed suicide, and they didn't even know either. So it was this thing that I've always wondered.
And they
like,
seemed happy.
yeah,
It was something we've always wondered. Like,
but why?
why?
Like no, nothing. So I've always wondered, what was there, or what did we miss, or whatever. But yeah, we really wanted to have that scene be very impactful and get to people, because it is, get that point across of like, this person now immediately is regretting this decision and wants to go back, but you can't go back.
Yeah.
So really, it's brutal, but it needs to be. So.
But still, in a way where there's like with Mark, he was merciful with it. He's saying like, we all care, no matter how we go. Everyone misses everyone and wishes and has regrets and stuff. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there.
Well, you know what? when Mark was talking to Becky, and and the things that he was saying, I was sitting there thinking that for those that have decided to take their own life, and if they have those thoughts like Becky did, the ones that are left behind, and this is the reversal of that scene. Those that are left behind need to think with more mercy and more grace, because I have done so many interviews on suicide, and it always comes down to one thing: nobody saw it coming.
Yeah, right.
Nobody understands. But I've talked to people who said, who have been in that situation, and they all explain it the same. It is a dark place that you cannot define, and it is so dark that there's a very tiny space. You either stop where you're at, but if you cross it, there's no coming back.
Right.
But you show, like you said, Mark shows grace and mercy, and in a way, his dialogue is the dialogue for the living.
Yeah, yeah. He's talking about himself, really. Yeah,
talking about himself, talking about those that are left behind, on the other side. So,
I hope if even one person sees it and changes their mind about something like that, or is in that spot, then that's the scene. Though you're right. That's that scene. Every screening, there's someone that walks out, and it's not because they don't like it. It's just they emotionally can't handle it.
Well, that scene alone is a short film by itself.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
It really is. Yeah, and that's like, as far as production design too, we really wanted to keep it just simple, and it was just
very simple.
Easy just to focus on them, and then just sticking the camera right and
as close as we could get.
Her eyes tell so much of a story.
Well, let me ask you this: like with Mark, he wasn't dealing with his grief the right way. The doors represented him closing his heart to lessen the pain, because that's what he did with his job. But the reality is, opening up his heart, like opening the door, was really the only way to allow healing to begin, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. He when you get stuck, when you're depressed for some reason, like you're depressed, but you don't want to. For some reason, when you're in it, you don't want to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
And in his mind, it's like if he leaves this depression, he's going to leave Joshua or whatever's left of him. So he's kind of holding on to that, and that's what the double knock is supposed to represent. That's your friends, that's your community trying to help you, and you just have to ask for that help, and they can help you, and you can move on. But you need community or friends or anything. You need some sort of support group to help.
Sort of outside help, not just being stuck within your own space, living in your own head.
That's dangerous. That's a dangerous place.
For sure. But the doors are a perfect metaphor for that. It was great because they represent a lot. Closing your heart, closing the door.
I'm not going to give the ending away because all I'm going to say is when I saw the ending, it's almost like, and you're going to know what I mean. It's almost like you can feel the fresh air.
Yes,
that's good. I'm glad. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I'm going to say because when I saw it, I went, "Oh, finally," because I was just like, "Yes, yes, yes, yes," and so it really sealed the whole film.
Mm-hmm.
But so with this film, I mean, it is full of so many different scenes. For both of you, how was it for you to create the right flow? I mean, was it a big challenge?
It's not something we really thought about while we were shooting it or writing it. That more came definitely with the editing, is getting that pacing and that flow down, which is why, honestly, it's luckily that we had so much, the 3-hour version, because it allowed us a lot of space to kind of get that flow right. So we did end up cutting a shorter version that was an hour and a half, but it's a movie. But it's not a good movie.
But you don't care.
I don't feel like you don't live with them enough to feel those moments later on in the movie. Mm-hmm. I think that's why I think we've had some people be like, "Oh, it's a bit long," and we're like, "Yeah, but you would know when you watch the shorter version that this one is better." Right. So you don't feel the same thing.
Well, were there when you were writing the script, but then when you were getting to the point to where you needed to create the look, were there films that you have seen that you kind of use as a reference point, and if so, what were those films?
Maybe not off the look, but writing and probably Everything Everywhere All at Once is the only one that we're like, that proved okay, you can have a dumb kung fu fight scene and make people cry in the same movie. You know what I mean? That movie was so ridiculous, but yet they had two rocks at the end, not even talking, and people were crying. So I was like, you can do it it's hard, but if you can nail the balance, it's possible. So that was what after we had the script, that after watching that movie, it's like, okay, this is possible to pull off such two different crazy tones, because the movie it shouldn't work as well as it is. I'm glad it is, but I don't think we really feared that. The lucky thing about your first film is you're too naive to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a gift, because I think now going into something like this, we'd be more scared because we know so much now.
Yeah, we'd be worried about it not working so much that it probably wouldn't work. But we didn't think of that at all as we were doing this film. We're just like, yeah, whatever, we'll do it. It's gonna be great.
We put all our dumb jokes in, and we just didn't care.
Yeah. So,
we have meme references. I don't know if you got any of those, because the younger generation's really liking those. There's YouTube meme jokes we put in there. The double rainbow YouTube meme. It's we just went for it all. And it worked, luckily.
Well, the way I look at it is I like filmmakers who have never been to film school.
Yep.
Because you go in blind, you break all the rules, and people can say, well, no, you're not supposed to be doing it that way. No, this is filmmaking. You can do it any way you freaking want to.
Yeah, as long as it, and then you do have to be open to criticism or realizing when something isn't working to fix it, or to make it better. But yeah, I feel, I definitely go with kind of knowing the rules, but then knowing to break them, knowing how to break them in the right way. But yeah, I mean, we did talk to line producers and different producers who kept telling us no, you can't do that, or you can't do this, or whatever. And we're like, oh, thanks, but whatever, we'll do it.
Yeah, because we shot, for our budget level, we shot over 30 days, which isn't normal. So
Mhm.
we chose to have a smaller crew and shoot longer days than the opposite. And I'm glad we did because
More days, not longer.
yeah,
Only
yeah,
12
more
hours.
days. We did short days, but yeah, because I think to get the shots and to do the worlds and all the crazy, like the floor raising and all these crazy things, we needed
Mhm.
the time to do it. But I think that's what it's cinematic. People want to see that kind of cool stuff.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. Those shots of when we first enter cardboard world and we go through the closet, like that took us 8 hours to set up, and it's a less than 30-second shot.
Yeah,
So we knew like if we go down to 20-day shoot or 19-day shoot, there's no way we can get those. We wouldn't be able to spend 8 hours to do one shot. So we figured out how to shuffle things around and money, and people were pre-lighting, so the whole set was split already for the house, so we didn't have to spend time doing lighting. It was just ready to go. Oh, it's nighttime. Okay, cool. Boop, they push a button and it turns into
turn
night.
of the night.
Well, when I was looking at the the set with Plate Lady, I'm thinking, good Lord, that whole set must have taken forever.
So we
That set stressed me out.
so as we realized, okay, I think we're gonna make this movie, we started going to estate sales and yard sales and Facebook Marketplace. Anytime there was like anything, we'd go and we'd be like, "Where's all your plates?" We just get all their plates. We went to this one estate sale and she literally had the living room just filled, and she was like, "Everything's free," and I was like, "This is everything?"
She was a
So
real life plate lady. She
She had so many plates, like hundreds of plates. So we just filled the whole truck up and put them in a storage unit. But then we didn't have the money yet to make the movie, so then we started getting worried. Like, I hope we get the money, because if not, now we just have this storage unit filled with junk,
filled.
So, but
Yeah.
then it came through. And then we thought we had a lot of plates, but then when we started doing the set, we're like, dude, we need like so many plates. That's where the boxes kind of came in. And my wife works for a coffee shop, so all the boxes they would break down every day, she would just give us. And then we had reach out to the colleges and people who want to volunteer for films and just be on set. And they would come and we'd help them
Help us
paint boxes.
Well, okay, I was wondering
Yeah.
because with the pink and the green, that was paint.
Yes, painted boxes.
Painted every
literally
box.
just some, and it's fun. Yeah, some people would come in and they'd paint 2 boxes in 4 hours, and I was like, okay. And then some people would paint 30 boxes in the same amount of time,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, whatever. They're having fun, and we're not having to paint boxes. That takes so much time. So that was the thing we knew to save money too. Is we built. So we do construction. So we built the house. We built every
Most
other
of the sets,
set except for painting the boxes. I mean, I painted some, and then Cardboard World we had help with. Some production designers built all the trees and built everything in there.
The car and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Okay, okay, I understand that this was a whole cardboard set.
Yep.
Did you film it in order or did you film it out of order?
So we built everything's in one building. We've got a warehouse, like 7,000 square foot space. And we built the house first in the middle, and then we pushed the house out of the way, so it kind of tucked it into the side. It could break into 2 pieces, and we kind of like Tetrised it into the corner. And then we did Cardboard World first. So we shot all the worlds first. So Cardboard World was first. The first shot of the entire production was the trees when they split apart. You see Lauren.
Yeah, he turns.
So that was the very first shot of the movie. And that was crazy to see. Like, they've been there was a little side room at the warehouse that they were building all the trees in, and over like a month or so, the
hundreds
car,
and hundreds.
and then they got sick, and the car wasn't done yet, and it was like 3 days before we need it, and they were like both really, really sick, and I was like, oh man, like, is this? They came through though, and they got it done, but they took a day to recover and then came in.
Yeah, so we shot Cardboard World, all that, then Darkness, I think was the next thing we shot, which is towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And then Gunter and Plate Lady, and then we pulled the house back out and reset it up.
Yeah,
and shot everything.
That way, so the house was set, and then we had, I think, 2 weeks of shooting in the house, and we shot it in order as much as we could, except for when we destroyed the house.
Yeah, we had to shoot the destruction stuff
the
towards the
fight
end.
scene and the destruction stuff. So then we're done.
Oh man! Now look, with the scenes with Gunther,
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't even really about Gunther. That was anger coming from Mark and Joshua, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a good, anger. That whole room, just anger. And then kind of a happy little accident with the set design too. With that is like, you know how they loop around and they kind of go through a new loop, but it's like being stuck in a loop of anger too. So that was really nice visual. So it's just like you can't get out of this thing. You're just kind of looping around until you really
Face it.
and
Oh,
escape it.
okay. I want to see if I get this right.
Hmm.
When Mark and Joshua, because that's really like the whole anger segment of the film.
Yeah.
They weren't angry technically with Gunther. Mark was angry of going through the grief process. It's like, it's like some people, they lose someone and then they go through that, it's kind of a cross between denial and anger. And they're like, why did you leave me? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. Is that what
Right.
that was about?
The anger at the world because he
Yeah.
got sick, and yeah, just anger. Yeah, I like that grief part of anger. Yeah, it kind of, and they just took it out on Gunter, even though he was kind of nice to them, kind of.
Yeah,
After a
calling
while.
him Nazi man.
All the
Yeah.
time, exactly.
Well, we kind of did that specifically too. Is he calls them, he says the F word to them, and then they ask him not to do that, so he stops. And then he says, "I'm not a Nazi," but they keep calling him Nazi, which is kind of this interesting dynamic. It was just kind of fun to play with that dynamic of like, hey, this one guy that you think is an asshole,
But you're
stopped
kind of
to
an
do
asshole.
something, and he's like, yeah, he didn't do it anymore, and then you keep doing the same thing that he
Yeah.
has to. So it's like these perceived things of people that you perceive about them, and then you want to, which is exactly what Gunter represents too. Is he wasn't this person. He just grew up in this society, and then when he moved to America, like maybe he's 12 years old, and then when people moved from America during World War II that were German, they were getting bullied and made fun of and called these things, and so eventually he was like, "Well, fuck you," or sorry, I don't know if I can cuss here.
Well,
Screw you.
if the audience will,
yeah.
because if the audience pays attention to the
Mhm.
dialogue between Mark, Joshua, and Gunther,
Yeah.
there are some really good gems in that dialogue because Gunther says it best. He goes, because they kept calling him Nazi man. He's like, dude, I wasn't even there.
Yeah.
I didn't do any of those things. I was 12 years old. And when I heard that, I was like, how many of us need to realize to stop pointing fingers at people that weren't even alive? I mean, because people are pointing a finger more at culture. They're pointing a finger at religion. They're
Mhm.
pointing a finger at someone's, their ethnic background. Not knowing, or they do know, they just don't, bring it forth to where they weren't old enough. They weren't born during that time. And if someone's born German, that's not their fault. If someone's born black, that's not their fault. It's just the way it happens. But I love that the exchange of dialogue because I'm hoping that when people see those scenes, they're going to go, "Stop being a freaking racist."
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the division that everyone has is just when you stop dividing on random things like that we can't control. It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you
been
make
big.
the guy in the car. The guy in the car. He was what, uh, half German, half Jewish.
Yeah. Yeah. German Jews. Yeah.
Yep. And that's
So
where we got to move on. Yeah, after that conversation.
well, it
It's
destroys the
more Gunter's
narrative.
thing was self-forgiving almost for something, just guilt he was carrying around for no reason.
Yep.
So that forgiveness there was what helped him move on. Finally, yeah.
Yeah.
Now
And I think
you,
too, like, people need to understand, like, you're not gonna change or affect someone or change anything positive by just being rude or yelling at them or calling them names and telling them that everything they believe is wrong. Like, that's not at all a good approach to actually doing. Like, of course they're gonna harden their hearts. They're gonna say, "All right, fine, I'm not gonna listen to this person," because
They hate
you're
me.
coming at them combative. So you have to really show humanity to people and show your humanity to open theirs so that you can then start realizing, because people see a difference, and then once they realize, like, oh, we're just the same,
well,
then you
yeah,
start.
it was like the guy in the car. He said,
Exactly.
"Look, you didn't know who I was."
Yep.
So he was forgiving. He was basically being the good side of humanity.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
100%.
so tell me, You have such a great cast of characters. What was the casting process like? Because again, Shane Allen and John Wilcox were absolutely perfect choices for the lead roles.
Yeah,
They were amazing.
it's funny. So we wrote this script in a month, which isn't normal, and it's a good challenge though. Like that's the only reason we got the script done is because you put off writing a script because it's so hard. And then I heard a podcast with Taylor Sheridan, and he said he wrote, I think it was Hell or High Water in 1 month. I was like, how is that possible? So we were like, let's just try it. So we sat down, and 1 month later, we had pretty close to the final what you see on screen. And then we invited a bunch of our actor friends here in San Diego, and they just come in blind, and we have all the scripts printed out, highlighted, and they sit down and they flip it over, and they just read it out loud, their highlighted parts. It's good for us as writers to hear it with a bunch of different voices, actually, especially the fast dialogue that we write. But just coincidentally, Mark and Joshua were played by Shane and John. They sat at those scripts, and they killed it. Even on the table read, they like reached out and held each other's hands and were crying in the table read. I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that.
Like they didn't even know they were a couple when they sat down. They didn't know anything about it. So them, getting that within the first few pages and then starting to really get connected was really cool to see. And we were like, wow, like these guys are. We weren't doing it as casting either. We were just doing it for ourselves so we can hear the script and see, because you live with it for so long. You're like, is this good? Is this working? And then hearing it from other voices is helpful. So, and then it just turned out like, wow, they really did a good job. And then, we did do some casting online and stuff, but then it just always kept coming back to them because they did such a good job.
They're too good. I'm glad. I don't think anyone could have done as good as they did. They really nailed it.
Yeah.
They were so believable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I mean all the way through. I mean the chemistry was absolutely fantastic. Now, the film premiered at Raindance. What was the audience's reaction to the film and what questions were you asked about it?
Oh, yeah, London. That was quite a few months ago.
It was very good responses. We had 2 sold out showings,
which is pretty rare, I guess. I didn't realize.
Yeah, which was great. And yeah, it was there was a walkout during Becky.
I was standing in the hallway, and this woman, she's bawling. She runs out. I was like, that's fair.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie because I feel like the audience responses sometimes almost makes me feel like, do people like the movie? But then I'm like, wait, this movie's really heavy, and it's kind of hard to talk after this movie. So there's a lot of people are really quiet, but in a really contemplative way. And then it's usually the following day when I run into them that they come up to me and they're like, hey, your movie, like, I haven't stopped thinking about this film.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a lot of the response.
And you could tell the people who have dealt with grief or similar topics, this movie really hits them. Mm-hmm. And people who haven't, they're like, yeah, it was fine, it was fun. But you could tell who it's really hitting. It's anyone who's experienced these kind of topics, it's hitting them in the right ways, which is good.
We did a screening, and then we did since we were in London, we'd never been before. We were like, let's do another screening after our Raindance one. So we got the Prince Charles Cinema, which is a legendary, theater that's like just one of the best theaters in the world, essentially. So cool. And so we reached out to them like, hey, we're going to be at Raindance. Can we also show our movie there? And they're like, of course. So we booked that up, and then we just posted it on Facebook, on Marketplace, or on Eventbrite or something. Like, hey, come out and see our movie. And we got I think it was a 100-seat theater, and 70-something people showed up. Random people, not film festival people, just random. One woman took a train for over an hour to come and watch this movie.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And that was a really cool experience because none of them knew anything about it. And then I sat down in the audience next to this guy, and then after the movie, he was like, he raised his hand. He's like, hey, so when it started, I knew you were a part of the production somehow. I didn't know you were the writer, but when you sat next to me, I was like, oh man, now I have to pretend like I like this movie. The guy sitting next to me, he said, but then 10 minutes in, I was legitimately loving your movie, and then you blew my socks off. That was a great compliment.
And that was just, not film, because festival, they're indie goers. They expect indie films, but these are just people who expected a movie, and I think they all loved. People stayed afterwards and talked to us for a while, so it was really cool to play.
So has the film premiered in the U.S. at a film festival?
Yeah.
Yes, we did Reeling in Chicago a few weeks ago. We've actually been traveling a lot. We did Reeling, in Chicago. We're from Idaho originally, so Boise Film Festival. We were the opening night movie.
That was really
So
cool.
that was actually cool too, because we played at the Egyptian Theater, which is another 100-year-old legendary theater. That was great, and that was bringing the movie home. Our friends and family from growing up. And then we just got back from Tallgrass in Kansas, and we actually just won the Stubbornly Independent Award, which is
That's the biggest award there.
biggest
Yeah.
award there. So that was awesome.
Well, so, can you tell the difference between how the audiences react from those in the U.S. and those in the U.K.?
Yeah, it was funny because I think the jokes, like people were crying over in London stuff, but the jokes were hitting more here. I wonder if, like,
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
think
one of
about
those
that, but I
things.
wonder if there's some more American jokes in there that I didn't realize that didn't hit other audiences as much.
Yeah.
The one joke that everyone has laughed the most at, even from test screenings before it was done edited, was the Gunter line where it's facing the Western Army at Normandy. People, they love that joke
Yeah,
everywhere.
love it.
I don't know why, but I was shocked that's the biggest laugh every time, which I
Yeah.
think is funny.
That and Plate Lady World always kills.
Yeah, Play Later Worlds. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, Plate Lady's the best.
yeah,
I mean, she could have her own. She could have her own film.
yeah. She really could.
Yeah.
There's
So,
probably enough
what would you
content.
like? No, go ahead.
No, sorry. I'm just saying there's probably enough content to make a whole movie just with her world, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what would you like the audience who do see the film take away from it?
I hope they leave feeling, like I hope I was really happy what you said about the end shot. I want it to feel hopeful.
Yep.
I want it to feel like you can experience these things and go through this kind of grief, and that's normal, and we all do it sometimes in our life, and you're not alone in that, and you can get through it, and the world's going to be okay. Like, it's going to hurt for a while, and you need your friend groups to get through this. I hope that's what I don't want it to feel. There was a version of this that could have been really dark, and I'm glad we didn't go that way, because I don't want people to feel that way.
No, I wouldn't have gone dark at the end. I love the ending because I was sitting here watching the film. I'm not going to give it away, but my feeling and emotion was, come on, Mark.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
You can do this. And then when it happens, you're like, yes.
As we wrote it, we thought, this is a movie. It's a movie about moving on, which is, I think, it's actually not accurate. It's a movie about moving forward. So,
Right.
which I think is also the thing that Mark is dealing with, is he thinks he has to move on from this, and he doesn't want to move on from it. Which is true. When you have someone that you love that much, you don't want to forget them. You don't want to move on from them. But you can move forward with them,
Right.
with everything that they've given you. So yeah, that came from talking to people too. It's just like, this isn't a movie about moving on. It's a movie about moving forward.
Well, people feel guilty
Mm-hmm.
if
Mhm.
they're afraid that they're going to forget them.
Right.
Right.
And there's no guilt, there's no shame in that. That's what time does.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and it's not a negative, it's just what happens. When people say, it's time to move on, that doesn't mean it's time to forget.
Yes. Exactly. Right.
Mhm.
Not forget. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
yeah.
is important, and from the people, they always say, most of the people too that are the ones that pass. They're usually always, if they have time at least, telling the person, live your life, live your life, be happy.
Yeah.
So then they truly mean it. You know what I mean? They they don't want you to be all sad forever.
Well, yeah, and again, you couldn't have done the ending any better. I'm just going to leave it at that. And
Nice.
so, ladies and gentlemen, the feature film, If You Should Leave Before Me, is about a devastating loss that drives a rift between Mark and Joshua after many years of marital bliss. Now, to avoid coping with their grief, they immerse themselves in their work, which just so happens to be guiding the recently deceased to the afterlife. A touching story of love and loss. But there are multiple storylines in this film, almost like miniature chapters in a way. The filming is contained within Mark and Joshua's home, but with doors that lead to others trying to navigate their way from this life to the next. Now, when you have a chance to see this film, you will understand that love isn't always full of roses and joy, but love is also about patience, kindness, and overlooking the flaws in others as well as ourselves. But remember, love never comes to an end. With grief, and as the most famous saying has told us, Grief is just love looking for a place to go. And this film, If You Should Leave Before Me, explains it perfectly. And Marcus, and Boyd, I want to thank you so much for sharing one of the most original films I've seen this year. And we need more filmmakers like you who are stepping outside the box and breaking all the rules.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
that
for
was
having us
amazing.
on.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And again, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, well, let me ask you this for both of you.
Yeah.
Is this film going to have here in the US, a theatrical release, or is it still in the film festival circuit?
Still in the festival circuit. We still got a few more festivals we're waiting. So we're hoping for a theatrical release maybe summer next year. That's the hope. We're talking to distributors now, but yeah, we're just waiting for the festival run to go through. But we always update what festivals we're in on our Instagram and stuff. So if people follow us there, it's at just all the first letters. So IYSLBN, because the title's so long. So we just did the first letters.
I
Yeah,
get it. I get it. I've seen that a lot on Instagram. So,
yeah.
well, definitely go after the theatrical release that gives you more power in the world of the film industry. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to check out this film when it comes to your area. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on your way to work or play on Spotify, iTunes, even Amazon Music, and more. And remember, you're either going to see me at the movies or on the red carpet.